Time running out. Clarkson, can they make it happen? McGrath, then the touch goes, and there's the bar!
Alistair Johnston simply must score to keep Celtic's treble dream alive. It's Aberdeen's cup! Has won the Scottish Cup for Aberdeen. It is quite sensational.
Hello, welcome along to episode 251 of the ABZ Football Podcast. I'm Gary Scott. Joining me is a man who loves chat about biomechanics. It's Gavin J. Baxter. Gav, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah, I almost love that as much as chat and appearances from magicians and musical numbers in the middle of UEFA Cup and Conference League draws.
Quite the afternoon it was spent there for having streamlined it apparently to the touch of a button. Why not just press a button and put the fixtures on the computer on the website? That's all we need to happen there.
Far too efficient, but I guess if we did that, then DC and Stephen Gunn wouldn't be able to rub shoulders with the big guns, would he?
This is also true, I guess. And Gav, fair play, well done in hastily putting together a new set of intro music for us. We obviously cannot condone certain things that are happening at other football clubs across Scotland. So good effort there, Gavin, in making sure that that's been corrected.
I don't know what you're talking about. That's been the intro music for weeks now. On an unrelated topic, I may have to look at one of those Fitbah tweets prints.
Yes, I think so. Quite possibly. There we go.
Just keeping everything crossed. That is just all a terrible, terrible nightmare.
Yeah, I've got a funny feeling it might not be. Welcome along to all of our followers on the various different podcasting arenas, and now for the first time for mainstream purposes on YouTube. Welcome along to all of you, of course, on the old social media accounts, and also to our new subscribers over at abzfootballpodcast.com, where you can, of course, become an Ullevi member for less than the price of a pint of beer. So yes, welcome one and all to this one. Gav, today we're going to have a quick look back at our defeat in Bucharest last night. We'll check in with some of the kind of latest news from the club, which also includes that Conference League draw, which took place today, Thursday lunchtime. And then we're going to preview our SPFL Premiership tie with Falkirk on Sunday. But there's only one place to start. FCSB 3, Aberdeen 0, Thursday the 28th of August 2025 at the National Arena in Bucharest. The Europa League playoff round, second leg. That, of course, meaning the FCSB win 5-2 on aggregate. Gav, 5 changes from the starting lineup from what we saw last week. We had Devlin Knuster, Polvara, Shinnie, and Esther Sokler all starting. Malloy, Dorrington, Helena Nielsen, Milanovic, and Kushini Yengi all dropping to the bench. No Shayden Morris. We'll come on to talk about that in a little bit more detail later. Jensen at left back, Devlin at right back. Polvara now Sheesh kind of seem to be kind of switching positions with each other, I thought, for much of that first half. But yeah, let's start with that starting lineup, shall we? I mean, for you, happy enough with how the manager decided to set ourselves up last night?
Didn't necessarily hate the starting 11. Pretty happy with the players who came in. Felt like Knuster, Polvara, and Sokler were shoe-ins, and I think if he's going to drop Helena Nielsen, then he's probably going to go with an experienced player in place. And Shinnie in midfield, I thought was made a difference last week. Obviously playing left back, but still brings in a certain level of intensity. And Nicky Devlin, I thought, was a good shout. Probably the one thing I'd maybe pick a bone with, I personally probably have dropped Keskinen instead of Milanovic to make way for Danny Polvara. But other than that, yeah, happy with the players who came in and equally happy with the players that went out.
And we have a great chance in the opening minutes in Bucharest here. We have Ashish played in by, I think it's Alexander Jensen, who's far advanced. That effort's kind of spilled by the goalkeeper right into the path of Esther Sokler. He was only able to kind of prod it back straight into the arms of the goalkeeper, who was on the deck. Maybe came at him just a little bit too quick from it, sort his feet out, but at this level, you've got to be taking those opportunities. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Daba in the cup semi-final. You've got to get those feet sorted out and just prod it home. And what a chance that was for us to get off to a dream start in Bucharest.
Well, I was just going to say, it is cliche central, but yeah, it's what they do say, that at this level, you get your chances, you have to take it. You're not going to get chance after chance after chance, and that's perhaps the biggest criticism you could level against Esther Sokler, is that tends to take a few chances for him to get a goal. But it was part of what you say was an encouraging start from Aberdeen. I thought we looked very assured on the ball. Looked like we were keeping them at an arm's length and posing threats, especially down the left side. So a bit more of that, and it felt like we were the team in control, and only one team like they were going to open the scoring.
It's hard to disagree with that. I thought that in the main for the first 30 minutes or so, there or thereabouts, I thought we looked good. Again, kind of similar to how I thought we were in stages in the home leg, where I thought we actually looked like a pretty decent team on the continental stage, so to speak. It wasn't a Scottish team in Europe performance because we weren't pumped for 6. But I thought we looked composed, a little, we looked neat. I thought we looked tidy. We were probing in the right places, and I thought in the main for 30 minutes we were the better side.
Yeah, 11v11, much the same as last week. I felt that was the way the game was going. Make mention of the fact that also Devlin gets a good cross in, that Dante Polvara can't quite work towards goal or back towards Esther Sokler. But we were causing them problems all across the pitch. I thought that maybe part of the assuredness came from the fact they didn't appear all that keen to press us. They looked pretty happy for us to have the ball. So it's not the kind of typical Scottish football team get in their faces, show them all that fine prime Brexit tackles. It was actually a pretty assured looking Aberdeen team that goes some way to, you find the merit in our recruitment strategy of looking for players across from Scandinavia or Eastern Europe or other parts of the world where they can take the ball in, make things happen. Ashish and Polvara and Jensen, I thought were working well in tandem on the left side. And yeah, truth be told, I had no real concerns. That would change.
But then
Soonish.
Yeah. I mean, I guess a key moment as it transpires in the way that the game now pans out comes with Jensen getting booked initially. This was a time where FCSB were kind of starting to get a little bit more into the game without necessarily threatening too much. And it's one of these horrible situations that as a corner kick, as I recall, actually it comes in. Mitov does really well, comes and claims it, which is exactly what your goalkeeper to be doing. We've been struggling so much at set plays in recent months. He looks up, he makes the decision to try and look for a quick throw, hesitates, doesn't make it, then decides to do it. The throw's terribly short if he's aiming for Ashish, which I think is who he's aiming for, or it's too long if he's aiming for Jensen, because it kind of falls between the two of them. It lands at an FCSB player who kind of reads what's happening, who knocks it past Jensen. Jensen clearly is a little bit out of position or is not sure as to where he is on the pitch, because I think the ball is probably going out of play, or it does go out of play. Jensen panics a little bit and kind of steps across to block him off. It's hard, I think, in that situation there for the referee not to give a yellow card, because it looks like a cynical foul, which it ultimately was. And in a way, that leads to kind of what inevitably comes a few minutes later.
Just the makings of our own troubles, aren't we? Because, yeah, I mean, Mitov, he's, since the earliest days of his Aberdeen career, I thought it's been looking pretty shaky as far as commanding his box goes. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's not so good, both with Aberdeen and Bulgaria. But still, I mean, I think Jensen should know enough by now to know, be able to read the situation, read where he is on the pitch, and read the fact that the ball is, the attacker is going nowhere. So there is no need to make such a cynical foul. And in 2025 with VAR, where it can go and check whatever vaguely falls within its jurisdiction, you run the risk of getting a second booking and getting sent off. So it's another what if, another pivotal moment in the game as far as how the result ultimately unfolds.
Yeah, indeed. And that's ultimately where we get to a couple of minutes later, is the moment in this tie, effectively, where it's a long ball up the pitch. It's been pumped up there with no real sense of direction. I don't think Jensen is switched off on that long ball coming forward. Mikulescu gets in behind him, gets beyond him. Jensen gets back in and actually, in a way, does quite well to get himself back in to the position. Does well not to make a foul on the defender, on the attacker, because that's actually what I thought initially was going to happen here. You see a defender running backwards in a bit of a panic. You're expecting a tangle of legs, or he pulls across the boy or whatever. The ball flicks up off Mikulescu, who kind of scuffs an effort as he's falling over. I'm not really sure what he's trying to do. Brushes Jensen's arm, which was simply out there in a running movement. I think we were all bemused when we saw the referee going over to look at VAR. I think most of us assumed he was going to look at a potential foul, and there was nothing there. And then the more and more you saw them zooming into the handball, you're like, they cannot be checking for this, surely. Penalty eventually given. Jensen then getting a second booking, which also felt really harsh given the situation. Ultimately, this is a horrendous decision by the Norwegian referee.
Well, I would simply point out that a good friend of the football club, Bobby Madden, on his Instagram, can't remember his exact quote, but it's along the lines of "Give me strength. That's never a handball." And,
even I wouldn't give this for Rangers at Ibrox, I think is what it said.
And that's one thing. The fact that friend of the show, Jamie Guyan, who is a very reasonable and a man who's willing to step up and defend referees whenever he thinks they're being unfairly judged, also has said that under no law within the game can this possibly be a handball, never mind a second yellow, for what effectively the referee must be judging this to be deliberate handball. I mean, I guess it just makes you realize that we always go on in this country about how we should really go and outsource our referees. And then the more you watch Conference League, Europa League, even Champions League, you realize they're all as bad as each other. Let's be quite frank. I mean, some of our guys, maybe some of our guys are the elite.
I guess as well, this is an instance again where, though, this is VAR intervening, where VAR was not intended, I don't think, in the initial stages to be intervening in. And at the end of the day, this is a decision that has cost us the tie.
Well, all I'll say on that one is I just want to thank once more for everyone who championed the introduction of VAR, because it definitely has not killed the game, and it definitely was not only ever going to work one way.
Absolutely. I would, not to put the old tinfoil hat on at all, but I do wonder as well, just as to the influence of our opponents last night as well. That lad that owns them, some togs he had on last night in the stand. I said it on Twitter last night, I will say it again. I hope Davy Cormack was taking tailoring tips.
When he celebrates at the end of the game, looking very proud as his team have beaten a 10-man Aberdeen side, who are way short of where they need to be for the Scottish Premiership, never mind the Europa League. It reminded me of what Davy Cormack must have been like when he was telling Alan Burrows or was it when Alan Burrows told Davy Cormack that we were the best team to visit for our park? Stephen Glass's first season.
Yeah, I remember that. That was quite the moment.
I am. I'm just going to put that there. I think that man has possibly paid off someone in his lifetime.
I don't think it's a stretch to suggest that he has perhaps indulged, shall we say. But yeah, it's such a disappointing way in which this tie ultimately is determined, and we move from there. I think that, like I say, for 30 minutes again last night, we look like the better side, and Olaro obviously steps up, puts the penalty behind Mitov. It becomes just such a different game at that point. And I thought FCSB looked nervy last night. If that had got to 0-0 in particular, just the impetus is all with us, isn't it, at that point?
Well, let's just go back to Gigi for a second, because he went out all guns blazing after they got beat at the weekend, singling out, I think, 3 players for particularly strong criticism. So is it out with the realms of possibility that he takes a trip down to the dressing room and makes some further threats and makes them even more nervous? And who knows what can happen? Who knows what happens if Esther Sokler, gets that rebound in the back of the net rather than off the Bucharest goalkeeper? I would want to say as well that try and do this like where you try not to focus everything on referees, and it is undoubtedly a horrendous decision, but we're talking about another 60-yard ball pretty much straight down the pitch, which Alex Jensen, not for the first time, does not read, lets himself get in a situation where he could well have given away a foul. It's ridiculously harsh what happens to him as far as the handball decision, but not the first time that this has happened to Jensen or any of our players for that matter. And we have to recognize that we were partially at fault here as well.
I don't think it's unfair to suggest that we could have dealt with the situation that leads to the incident in a much better way. That's undoubtedly not up for debate, I don't think. But ultimately, as well, you've got to expect the officials here to make the right decision when they end up with that, especially with the benefit of VAR. Like if the decision's given without VAR, and you go, maybe he thinks there's a tangle of legs, whatever, you sit and go, I can kind of just about understand it. For it to manifest itself in the way it does, it's just shocking, and it's very difficult to get.
It
over.
was the
I do
strangest
agree.
one. Yeah, it was the strangest one when you know that it's being looked at by VAR, and then Mitov's like 30 yards out from his goal. I'm starting to think, have they given offside for the initial? Because everyone seems very settled as this is not happening.
Yeah.
Like there's no consequence. And then when it changes to okay, he's going over the screen, I'm convinced there's no foul as far as a tangle of legs, or like Jensen has a hand on the guy, but it's not nearly enough to shove him over.
No.
And then you realize, oh wait a minute, they're looking for a handball. No way, oh man. But yeah, I think also we've learned by now that VAR doesn't really matter. It's the clowns that are enforcing it or using the technology, and they're the same as they were 5-6 years ago.
Absolutely fair. Halftime 1-0. The narrative of the game, the dynamic of the game has completely changed at that point. We make subs at the break. It's Polvara and Sokler come off for Helton, Nielsen and Clarkson. It's fair to say that that's a pair of substitutions that had a lot of people scratching their heads at.
I've thought about this today in preparation for this recording, and what effectively happens here is that he brings off a striker and, for all intents and purposes, a wide player to bring on 2 central midfielders, and we somehow become more open.
It's not unfair to suggest it.
One of whom being a midfield enforcer, you might say, on paper. I think, do we go with Keskinen up front?
Keskinen kind of went into that space.
And like Ashish kind of goes out wide left, and I can't even remember who was playing wide right at this point. But kind of didn't really matter. Just in a game like that where you're 1 down, you're down to 10 men, but you're still in the game. You need to lock the game down, make yourself difficult to play against, and carry some kind of threat. And these 2 subs do not do that.
Yeah, I don't think they do. I mean, I don't think Polvara had a great first 45 minutes. Like, I think there was an argument there. There's a situation in there where you can kind of see why he maybe doesn't start as many games as people would clamor for. But I didn't think he was the worst player in our team either, by that stretch of the imagination. I do still think there's a piece in there around his recovery side that's being managed, and I don't know if there's an element of thinking there about, if we're down to 10, we're going to be chasing a lot of ball. We don't want to put a lot more strain on him from that perspective. I don't know if that's something that was playing into the thinking. I thought that taking Sokler off was a strange one, just because I think Sokler, if nothing else, works hard and he runs. Whether the fact he was on a booking might have played a part in this decision here, that we didn't want to be in a situation where we lose another man. But if the tie wasn't already over at the break, it was shortly afterwards, you've got a rocket of a 25-yard effort from Soot past Mitov, who'd done pretty well a few seconds earlier, tip a curled effort onto the post. That goal, though, again comes from our own making. We lose the ball cheaply in the centre of the park, and then it's 3-0 not long after that. Nielsen gives the ball away in the midfield, not for the first time that's happened. FCSB transitioning quickly. The ball finds its way to Laru, whose effort is deflected off Milne and then past Mitov, and I can see what Dylan thinks about it. But just two really poor goals again to concede in a situation where, as you say, you're looking to try and lock the game down a bit and try and get to, I don't know, 70, 75, 80 minutes at still 1-0, and you're trying to maybe force a set play or something to try and get ourselves level pegging. Just disappointing the way that we just allowed that to drift away from ourselves.
Just same old, same old. I mean, even this season, we're repeating the same mistakes again and again. I mean, the second goal, yeah, Mitov pulls off some heroics because it's an amazing save to get the ball into the post, and then FCSB very quickly recycle it, and their midfield player is 25 yards out with no one anywhere near him. The quote-unquote fresh legs making no effort to press him. Exact same story as Hatate for Celtic, and players at this level, they've got a good chance of hitting the target, if not getting the ball past the goalkeeper. And then the third goal, I mean, holy fuck.
It's so bad.
I mean, I would love to, as I said on the last episode, like one of two things is happening. Either Jimmy Tillene is the one man, or his collective coaching staff are the one group of people who can see the merit and the value in Sivert Hilton and Nielsen in 2025, and the rest of us are all wrong, or it's vice versa, and he's just a blind spot of the manager, because this is again a game where he's come on and just sold the shirt for the entire time he's been on the pitch. Gives away possession, ambles after his man. I was saying slowly, Mark Gordon, friend of the show, did point out, that's actually him at full pelt. He's been on the pitch for 5 minutes and looks the most lethargic player on the pitch. Just a complete liability, and makes me question the manager's judgment on a number of things, not least of all his continued selection of this guy. And if Kjartansson doesn't offer more than Hilton Nielsen, why did we bring him in?
It's absolutely fair. 100%.
Yeah. When he came on, I knew that it was always going to be so difficult when you're down to 10 against a team away in Europe, but bringing him on just gave us no chance.
I mean, there has to be. It's been brewing for a while. Like, unquestionably, it's been brewing for a while. But there's got to be here a serious conversation about the Hilton Nielsen piece at the moment now. I mean, if he starts on Sunday, and we'll come on to this,
which he will, by the way,
which there's a very strong possibility he might. I just feel that Tillene is here making a rod for his own back now unnecessarily to a certain extent by continuing to persist with this, because it is patently just not working in the way in which it maybe did when Nielsen first came into the team at the start of last season. Yeah, there's got to be a serious conversation about this, hasn't there?
It's not been working for her roughly since after the first 3 months. The run that we went on, that 14-15 game run without a win, he was omnipresent. We started looking a little bit better when he got injured. It's come straight back in. Jimmy Tillene talks about how certain players need more intensity in their preparation and more consistency. And yet, Sivert Hilton Nielsen comes back, plays half a game of football in preseason, and has now played every game of the season so far, and not put in one performance that makes you think, oh, I understand what he's bringing to the team. There's nothing. So if Jimmy Tillene can't see that, he may well be past the point of help.
And this is definitely the big question mark. It's going to be very interesting now to see how we move on from this. This game in particular on Thursday night, the tie as a whole, actually, what we saw, and I think Jimmy Tilleen's right about this in his post-match interview yesterday, in fairness to him, which is around, you've got two instances here where teams go down to 10 men in this tie, and you have to, compare and contrast the way in which both those teams who had the numerical advantage dealt with that. I mean, we saw last week, we did not take advantage at all of the fact we were a man up for similar periods of time, actually, as to what happened in the game last night, in fairness. FCSB last week dropped into being, and they weren't particularly adventurous before the red card anyway last week, but they dropped into a relatively low block, shut themselves down. They score because we were architects of our own downfall once again, and we're right up against it and have to fight to get to a 2-2 draw, which at the time we were all happy about getting a 2-2 draw because you've come back from being 2-0 down. But what we saw last night from FCSB is we go down to 10 men. They completely controlled that game after that. We were unable to lock ourselves down to a point where we could try and be secure. And they just take complete advantage of it. And that ultimately is the difference between the two sides here, is that they took advantage of that much better than we did.
Oh, I mean, there's a number of factors that went into the reason as to why we're about to talk about a Europa Conference League draw rather than a Europa League draw. But as far as the point of how the two teams handled being down to 10 men, yeah, I mean, none of their defenders clattered into each other, which I thought was unfair. Yeah, last week, I mean, let's be fair, it takes a Dante Polvara wonder goal to get us back in the game, and then it's a lot of, we weren't cutting them open by any stretch of the imagination. We're playing a lot of passes in front of them and trying to get balls in the box, and they dealt with some, we got on the end of some, and it was still a very hard work to get that second goal, especially. In complete contrast, even though we theoretically take off attacking players from more defensive-minded, we were just so easy to play against. And that's because FCSB don't have any passengers defensively. Aberdeen 100% do. And as I say, I'll just keep saying this, keep repeating it. I don't care how often I have to say it. That's the manager failing to recognise the limitations of a number of players that he's personally brought to this football club.
Ultimately, then we drop in the Conference League, which I think in the cold light of day as well, when you go back and you now look at the pots that were in play for the Europa League in particular, when I went and looked at them last night, I did think to myself, maybe this is not necessarily the worst situation in the world to be dropping here, because the Europa League this year is particularly loaded with a number of big teams. And I was looking at it and thinking to myself, from an experience perspective, it would have been brilliant, right? But from the prospect of getting pumped senselessly on a Thursday night, week after week, for 8 weeks of the season.
I mean, we do that on Saturday and Sunday, so we don't need it at midweek as well.
I was like, maybe Conference League might be a better fit for us, looking at the teams who we could or could not have drawn. And that brings us neatly on to the Conference League draw that we saw at lunchtime today. And it's scrolling now in the bottom of the screen there for everybody to see. And
shit, when did we get this technology?
Exactly. On the face of it, I mean, it's not the dream draw that we could have pulled out here. There was a lot of easier options available to us as the thoughts were working out. So,
with the greatest respect to our opponents, it's neither especially glamorous nor a group that makes you think, well, we could actually get some points out of this.
And this is kind of the bit for me. I think from an away trip perspective, obviously trips to Prague, to Larnaca, and to Athens, on a trip perspective, pretty damn good, right? In terms of the options that are available to us there, no question.
I'm still stunned we didn't get Donetsk away.
To be fair,
I would be made to play it in Donetsk.
Yeah, the only teams having to do that this season. Yes. But yeah, Shakhtar Donetsk at home, I think they were seeded. Let's call it seeded. I know it's not seeded, but by the coefficient ranking, I think they were the third highest ranked team in pot 1. Sparta Prague were the top ranked side in pot 2. Strasbourg, I think, were the third ranked side in pot 3. So we've pulled the top teams from the top 3 in each of the top 3 pots, which is pretty tough going. AEK Athens were probably the toughest team we could have drawn out of pot 4, out of who was available to us. Larnaca and Noah, whilst they are nominally some of the lower ranked sides in the pots they came from, they've got relatively decent European experience in recent years as well. And if we go through the teams themselves, you've got Donetsk, obviously the winners of the Ukrainian Cup last year. They finished third in their league. They've been in Champions League group stages in the last 7 seasons. Made their way into the Conference League by virtue of beating Servette last night. Sparta Prague, we touched on earlier on, they are the top ranked side in pot 2. They were beaten finalists in the Czech Cup final last season. They came 4th in the league. They're currently top of the Czech top flight. They're unbeaten in 6. They've got 2 league titles in their last 3 seasons. They are absolutely no mugs. Strasbourg at home. First time we'll face French opponents from an Aberdeen FC perspective, which sounds crazy that is the case, but there we are. They've spent just the mere 100 million euros in the summer so far after they came 7th in Ligue 1 last season. This is actually their first appearance in the group stage of European competitions. Athens, it's a return to group stage football for them after a 12-month absence. Finished 2nd in the league last season. They've kind of come right the way through qualifying by beating Hapoel Beersheva. I don't think Ordadi is there any longer, but there we go. Aris Limassol, and then they beat Anderlecht in the playoff round last night. And I've seen people looking at Larnaca and going, that looks like a piece of cake because they're like second bottom, or I think they were second bottom in pot 5. They were in the group stages of the Europa League. They made it to the last 16 of the Europa League not long ago. They won the Cypriot Cup last season. They made it to the groups ultimately because they fell out of the Europa League, but they did beat Partizan Belgrade. They beat Celje of Slovenia. They beat Legia Warsaw. They were beaten by Bran last night at the playoff stage, which means they drop out, but I don't think they're mugs, in fairness. And then you've got FC Noah, who are the current Armenian League and Cup champions. They were in the group stage of the Conference League last year, although they finished 31st out of 36. This is possibly the best part of the draw. They dropped down here, having been beaten in the Champions League qualifiers by Ferencváros. They then lost to Lincoln Red Imps in the Europa League. Also, they did beat Ljubljana of Slovenia in the playoff round for the Conference League last night as well. So, again, they have recent history within the group stages. It's not the easiest of draws in terms of the footballing side of things. That's for sure.
Compared to some of the absolute horseshit that Hearts got drawn with last year, it's definitely, I think every game is going to present its own unique challenge. And like I say, it's neither, I don't know, I think especially when you're a Diddy team like us who aren't in these group stages all that often, you look for one of 3 things, and that's either kind of glamour games where you get to go and watch your team play against really good players in big stadiums, or you look for a group where you can look at and say, well, I think realistically we can actually amass a number of points, or trips that are maybe slightly different than what you usually go with. Prague, Greece, and Cyprus is kind of, a number of the go-to countries for your average British tourist. So, and the home draws especially make me think that we're kind of on a hiding nothing. Donetsk could be obviously a huge victory if we were able to come out with that. But Strasbourg and an FC Noah, that's the Armenian football team, not the Japanese wrestling promotion. It's kind of like if we were to beat them, don't think anyone would be all that fussed. But if we got beat by them, it would be like, oh, look at Aberdeen disgracing the coefficient again, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah. Obviously, when you're tuning in to UEFA.com and there's a magician going around and Jurgen Klinsmann's pressing a button that he only had to press one time, numerous times, and that chunky monkey Eden Hazard comes up and tells everyone in the room that no matter how much you try, you'll never be as good as me. Yeah,
that was not very funny. That was very funny.
This is not the draw I was hoping for, but hey, it is what it is. It's what we're facing. It's what we wanted. Now we just have to go and do what we can and get as many points on the board as possible.
100%. I think that when you look at last year's league phase, 7 points was enough to get you into the knockout phase, apart from for Hearts, the only team who finished with 7 points last year but didn't make it through. For that to happen here, you've got to already you start to plot it and you look at it and you go, you've got to beat Noah at home. You've probably got to beat one of Strasbourg or Donetsk at home. And then you're looking to pick up a point on the road somewhere, and you're hoping that's either Larnaca or perhaps Athens. Maybe Athens might be the one here that I look at and I go, perhaps not the side they used to be. But it's going to be it's going to be interesting. I think Prague, I think Athens, I think Larnaca are pretty good away ties. It's not Florence, which is what I wanted ultimately, but there we go.
I think that's a big part of it as well. Like, we all were dreaming of Florence.
Yeah, I think so.
Anything after that was going to be a bit of a letdown.
It kind of is what it is from that perspective. As you say, we wanted to be there. I guess one of the big challenges here might be on those away ties is actually going to be ticket scrambles. I think I'm right in thinking that Sevco played Sparta Prague a couple of seasons ago away and only got like less than 1,000 tickets, I think, for that one. I'm not anticipating we get big allocations either in Athens or Larnaca. So that might actually be the biggest shiter of all this, might be that actually ticket allocations for these might be not the best.
Well, we're a club that need to make as much revenue as we possibly can. So I don't know if we chip in like a tenner each and Thunderdome it.
Quite right, maybe. Could be there. Let's wait and see. Fixtures, the match days, etc., will be confirmed by Sunday at the latest. So everybody's kind of sitting there waiting now just to try and get their flights and their accommodation and all that kind of good stuff sorted out. So it is class. It is an exciting time when you get an opportunity to do this. So fingers crossed all works out for everybody, and everyone who travels gets an opportunity to make it to one of the games. Will that do us in terms of talking about Conference League, European football for the time being?
Well, yeah, it'll certainly do us with talking about the Europa League for probably ever, because our coefficient is so shit. Yeah, we'll wait and see. Wait with bated breath what the random fixture computer throws our way, and hopefully at least people get to at least go one of those away days.
Absolutely. In terms of latest news then, Shayden Morris looks like he is off. Luton Town coming in with an improved bid late in the day on Wednesday going into Thursday. For you, I'm intrigued by this. Disappointed that we allowed this to disrupt our squad in Bucharest to an extent that we let him miss this game and return back to the UK last night rather than being part of the squad and being on the bench and available for us. I look at, was it Zilikowski, who played for Legia last night against Hibs? He was the guy who got sent off near the end. He played, despite the fact he's moving to Roma today. And to be honest, that's a much more significant move than moving to Luton fucking Town. And, we saw Sadiq for Häcken against us a few seasons ago, ran the show against us on the Thursday night and then signed for AZ Alkmaar the next day. Is there not an element here where we perhaps should have put our foot down and we're maybe saying to Luton, look lads, we'll come and talk to you about this on Friday. Let the boy go and play, and we're not going to interrupt things too much here. And also with Morris a little bit like, sorry, you're going to play or you're going to be on the bench.
I don't necessarily know how to comment on this because we don't know the full story of what's actually happened here. We can speculate on what the manager said, and we tend to go with the club as far as, it must be Morris kicking up a fuss here. We don't know if perhaps the club have said, we want to protect our investment and not play him. And if he's not going to play, then he may as well go back to the UK and finalise his terms, perhaps thinking that also this money will go some way to covering the money we're not going to receive from being in the Europa League. We always tend to look at the player rather than the club. We truly don't know. If Morris has in fact been the one that said that he's not in the correct frame of mind to play, that's regrettable, given especially the way the club have backed him for 3 years, and it's not been a prosperous 3 years. It was a great last 12 months for him. But if that's the way it's going to end, then yeah, it's unfortunate. Just kind of talking about the decision to let him go. If it's £1 million and on paper for Shane Morris, it feels like a good call. But that's Jimmy Tulin now let go of two players in Shaden Morris and Papi Gay, who I would dare say have won more matches, individually speaking, for Jimmy Tulin than any other player. So it's a massive call to let them both go.
Certainly having not adequately replaced either of them yet as it goes. I mean, you touched it there. If we are going to get the guts of £1 million for Morris, you can't argue with the fact that that's actually good business as he enters the last year of his contract. I mean, let's be frank. If you had sat probably this time last year or just slightly before this time last year and suggested that in 12 months' time we'd be getting that sort of fee for him, you'd have been probably carted off to a local institution, I think.
Oh, if you told me we were going to make £2 million off Papi Gay and Shaden Morris, then yeah,
or in that ballpark,
I would questioning what sport you're referring to, that they're a way to pursue. But it is 12 assists from last season, a number of goals, a number of game-changing performances from Shaden Morris that the manager's prepared to let go of. And we haven't shown... There's not enough to suggest we've replaced him. We've needed goals in both ties. Bilalovic hasn't featured at all. Bajan was let go. Fletcher Boyd, did he come on the first leg? I don't think he did he?
No, he didn't. No.
So yeah, that's now. We're obviously recording this on Friday, the 29th of August. So that's some big shoes the manager's going to need to fill in double quick time.
Well, I was going to touch on this. I mean, it leaves us now light in wide areas already. I thought we were still missing at least a body in the wide areas before we did this anyway. I still think that you've got the Keskinen and Milanovic are clearly going to be the first picks. You had Morris then to come off the bench, perhaps to replace Milanovic. I still not sure we're going to see a lot of Bilalovic this season. I feel he's much more of a kind of longer term prospect rather than what we're going to see right now. So I felt we already needed two wingers anyway. Well, sorry, I felt we already needed a winger. Sorry, before this, I feel we need two now. And you've got to hope that that's part of why we've agreed to do this deal as well. Is it's going to free up some cash to go and invest in getting a couple of wingers in. I don't think we've replaced Papi Gay yet. That sort of, I know we've got Aushishin, but he's a very different player. And I think Aushishin is the kind of player we did need, but I still think we needed to replace Gay. I was looking through the list last night. If you think about who was in our squad on cut final day, or who was contracted to the club on cut final day in attacking areas, and you had, Kevin Nisbet, Papi Gay, Morris, Bajowin, McGrath, Boyd, Keskinen,
Daba,
Ockles, notwithstanding, not
Shit.
very good.
Yeah.
Ambrose,
notwithstanding.
Yeah, but we had, is that 10? I think I get to. Is that
10,
feels fair?
Yeah.
10 players.
I don't think you've covered everyone either.
I'm probably missing people. You've got 10 players contracted to us in attacking areas there, and at this moment in time now, as we stand, you have Yengi, Lazatic,
Ambrose,
Ryan Duncan. So I missed Sokler off that one. 11. Sokler,
Ryan Duncan,
Keskinen, Milanovic, Bilalovic, Ashish. Like, we're maybe
Pulvar's a makeshift winger now.
We're possibly kind of there in numbers, there or thereabouts, but I don't think we're there at all in the terms of the level of quality at all. And I mean, the Monday 11 o'clock deadline is beginning to loom large now. I mean, we're waiting obviously on the news about Mitchell Frame being confirmed, 19-year-old left back coming in from Celtic. But yes, do I think we need some additional cover in the left back area? We probably do, because it's not clear when Emmanuel Gyamfi is going to be fit and available. But how much is Frame going to play? He's played, I think, 15 minutes of first team football in his career. So feels again like a prospect rather than a guy ready to come in and stake a claim. The window is closing rapidly. For you, where it needs to be addressed?
I'd also just point out that Mitchell Frame's most recent experience is 53 appearances for Celtic B in the Lowland League. So
Yeah.
just a little bit of a step up in terms of the demands that are going to be facing this young man should he, in fact, make his way to the Northeast. Hopefully does a better job than the last left back we signed from Celtic. Where do we need to address? I mean, Jesus Christ, that is a big old question. I mean, 100% up front in the striker. We need a striker with a track record of scoring goals, as crazy as that might sound. And we certainly need, with Morris leaving, with Morris and Papi Gay having left, and Vinny Bajowan being allowed to go, at least 2 wide players. That means we don't have to use Dante Polvara, the poor bastard, with his hamstring, reattached to the bone, making those crosses from the wide left area. And yeah, I mean, let's be frank about things. Keskinen so far this season has been extremely underwhelming. I thought he was very fortunate to start and then stay on against Bucharest. Milanovic and Ashish, they look good, but not created a huge amount yet in their opening 5 games. And we're letting go of genuine match winners in Papi Gay and Shayden Morris. And those were 2 players that were at the club prior to Jimmy Tulane. So he needs to do something and prove an ability to actually go out and recruit attacking players that can, change matches. Because so far, the evidence would suggest he's not been able to do that yet.
Yeah, going to be very interesting. Obviously, there was rumours abound last night after our chairman was apparently talking openly with groups of fans. Apparently, it seems like this is one of these things that's kind of come out, and whether that's accurate or not, it's a different matter. But the chat was about Kevin Nisbet was named apparently as being a player who will sign for us on Monday. I think the Nisbet camp has denied that pretty vociferously amongst the assembled Scottish media masses who were in Bucharest last night. So it's going to be very interesting to see who's right about that come Monday. Some other chat about some other players who were being linked with include Lyndon Dykes. Over the last kind of 24 hours, it sounds like it's possibly between us and Hibs looking at that. I'm not entirely sure Hibs needs a Lyndon Dykes type as things go.
It would be pretty cool to have a Scotland starter at Aberdeen.
Well, yeah.
Because Steve Clark's so loyal to his group that if Dykes is available, he'll start. So we could have Scotland's number 9 at Aberdeen if he was to come this way. And Australian heritage is our new thing.
This is true. I'm not sure he's a real out-and-out goal scorer.
Oh, he absolutely isn't.
So I'm not that excited about that prospect. It's going to be very interesting to see what happens over the next few days now, and how much business we actually do get done.
It feels like one of those things that just doesn't smell right. Lyndon Dykes to Aberdeen. I like Lyndon Dykes, I always have, but I don't think he's what we need, especially at this stage in his career.
Dykes is a hard-working forward. Is he any better than Esther Sokler from that perspective? And
yes,
running around and rumbling people up.
Yes,
maybe, but Marge, I just don't think he's the I just don't think he's the player we need. And if Monday comes along and our marquee signing is Lyndon Dykes on a loan deal till the end of the season, it's not going to be tickling my balls. It's fair to say. There's an image for you, right? Yes, let's see. We'll be back on. Well, we'll be recording in on Sunday night, I imagine, so we can revisit this, or maybe we should do Monday.
I think Monday's perhaps.
No, actually, we should do Tuesday because then the transfer window will be done, and we don't have a game at Baby next week.
Yeah.
So.
And I think so. That Tuesday recording is when we can make our drafts on the old predictors.
Yes, that's a good shout. That I enjoy that. This is what it's like.
Should we choose to do so? Graham may want to stick with Liam Kelly as top goal scorer in the Scottish Premiership.
Yeah, this is what it's like. This is the bits you guys don't get to see normally, where we edit stuff out, where we just like make up what we're doing on the hoof for the next episodes. But there we go. Right. Shall we move on from that, Gav? Time for Sunday's preview?
Yeah, back to the meat and potatoes.
Indeed, absolutely. So, Falkirk visit Pittodrie on Sunday. It's the first time that the Bairns have been in the northeast of Scotland since April 2010. An early goal from Steve McLean there.
Oh,
Enough to see us seal the points and allay any lingering relegation worries that there may have been that season, or any of those seasons around that period of time where I felt we were constantly just dotting around the bottom reaches of the league. It's fair to say.
ladies and gentlemen, if you're listening to this podcast and you're concerned about what we're doing in the transfer market, let me remind you that once upon a time, our marquee January signings were Steve McLean and Jim Patterson from Plymouth Argyle.
Fuck, I forgot all about fucking Jim Patterson. Jesus.
Who arrived at Aberdeen at the absolute last possible moment, having exhausted all other options. They joined Mark McGee's Revolution in the Northeast.
Do you want me to just rattle through that team lineup actually for that game against Falkirk? It's quite a thing.
I would hazard a guess that Gerald Leipel's in there.
Do you want to try and guess the team? If this is such an entertaining thing for people to do, or do you want me to rattle it off?
Langfield in goal.
Langfield and goal.
Eiffel. I'm guessing Xander Diamond at centre back.
Yes.
David Grassi.
Grassi is there. Yep.
Derek Young.
Derek Young is there. You're doing quite well.
Richard McDonald.
Nope.
No. So Curzo. Mark Kerr.
Marker is there. Yeah.
Gary McDonald.
No.
No. So Jim Patterson.
No.
Okay, so then Stephen McLean.
Steve McLean. Yeah.
Darren Mackey.
Mackey. Yeah.
How many have we got left to go?
From the starting 11, I think you have 3 to go.
Who else was still
Right
around?
back.
Lee Miller bailed out by this point.
Miller was gone.
Right back. Morris Ross, was this his time?
No.
David McNamee?
No. Jesus, Gav. Fucking hell.
I just remember these names being in and around the team around this kind of point.
I think this player departed at the end of the season on a loan deal initially to somebody else. And we did a sensational piece of return business.
Ricky Foster.
Foster.
That's what I said. I said Richard McDonald.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were talking about fucking. Sorry,
Mr. Amy McDonald himself.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that. I thought you were talking about fucking Gary McDonald for some reason. So sorry, you're missing 2 then.
Okay, what positions? Shawnee Luco.
No, you're missing a central midfielder.
Mark Kerr, not Gary McDonald.
Legend of the team that pumped Celtic out of the Champions League this week.
Legend of Kite Rat.
Yeah. Did he play for Kairat? Maybe he didn't play. Did he play for Kairat? Stuart Duff.
No idea. Stuart Duff. Okay.
Stuart Duff played for Kairat, didn't he?
He played in Kazakhstan. He was a talking head when we played Kairat. I'm not sure it was for them exactly.
I thought he played for Kairat. I'll have to go and double check this now. Maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, so final position.
Yeah, it was Kairat. Yeah, he played for Kairat. Final position. I don't know where we'd have played in this game because he can't have been playing in his natural position.
Pollitt.
Not Pollitt.
Michael Payton.
Payton came on for Mackey.
Chris McGuire.
No. Is now a talking head on one of the social media channels and has a fine head of hair and had an ill-fated brief spell in charge of somebody last year.
Is it Michelle Mohn's favourite footballer?
Yes, it is. Yes, Charlie Mulgrew. There we go.
Mulgrew.
I bet that was fascinating viewing for anybody on the video. The subs: Stuart Nelson, Jack Grimmer, Paul Marshall, a player who's about to sign for Dundee. Ryan Jack, Fraser Fivey, and Clark Robertson.
Already plays for Dundee.
So there we go. Scott Arfield played for Falkirk that day. He'll be back playing this week. So there we go. That's a full circle moment for you. Right. Fucking hell. Like that was exciting, I'm sure, for everybody.
Yeah, apologies for the PTSD that's just been inflicted there.
Yeah, it was Falkirk who took the drop that season, which of course then precipitated that 15-year exile from the top flight. An exit which also saw them spend 5 seasons in League One, which was kind of funny for the rest of Scottish football. I have no ill feeling towards Falkirk Football Club, but that was a kind of funny thing that happened. So
it's times like this when I always laugh at the people who say that a strong Scottish Premiership needs the big teams like Falkirk and Dunfermline because they bring supporters, and yet they have these natural advantages and they completely stink out the joint. And then Falkirk spend 5 years in League One as the only professional team there, and 15 years out, and Dunfermline got relegated probably even before that. So if you've got all these advantages and all these fans, maybe try being a little less shit than the smaller clubs.
You do sound a little bit like an old firm fan at that point when you say that, but there we go. In fairness, to talk about their fans, they have sold like over 1,200 tickets for Sunday, so fair play on that perspective. Yeah, I love how much you're just like nonplussed about this. Of course, they won back-to-back promotions, which has seen them return to the Premiership. They won the Championship title last season with 73 points on the board. Sunday will be the 78th meeting of the sides at Pittodrie in the league. Aberdeen with 44 wins, 21 draws. The Bairns have won on 12 occasions. 151 goals for the home side, 69 for the visitors to date. So far this season, they came to the League Cup group stage comfortably enough. A 7-0 win over Brecon, 4-2 win on penalties against Cove, 3-1 over Queen's Park, then a 4-0 win over Spartans. In the league, an opening day draw with United, 2-2 at the Falkirk Stadium. That was followed up by a 3-1 defeat to fellow league new boys Livingston. Although Livy have held the Indian sign over the Bairns last season, and it's fair to say Gav made it a much more interesting run-in than I think most of us were expecting. Falkirk were winning that title at a canter until they nearly absolutely bottled it at the back end.
Which would have been funny.
Which would have been quite funny. Yes. Last game for Falkirk, a 4-1 defeat to Celtic in the League Cup. Their game against Hibs last weekend, similar to our game against United, was postponed due to Hibs' involvement in playoff ties as well. John McGlynn, in fairness, has been a revelation for the Bairns since joining them back in May 2022. 148 games in charge. He's got a 62.8% win percentage. And he's undertaken a real kind of change in terms of his philosophy as a manager. During his time at Hearts and Livingston, he was agricultural AF. Has spent 4 years as a scout at Celtic, was working in Brendan Rodgers' kind of coaching setup as well. His game has definitely evolved, or his view of the game has definitely evolved. They certainly look to play a style which is a lot more easy in the eye. They look to attack at every opportunity. They've not really done a lot of business in the transfer market this summer. Scott Bain make the move from the Celtic bench to Falkirk in the summer, alongside 80-year-old Brian Graham from Partick Thistle. Lewis Nielsen and Henry Cartwright also making loan moves from Hearts and Leicester City, respectively. Kyrell Wilson, a winger, joined today on loan from Swansea on a season-long loan. A couple of players out the door, nothing really of note. McGlynn's still talking about doing some business before the end of the window, where we heard that before. Other than that, it's pretty much the same squad that came up. It's a mix of experience and youth. There's also a couple of Aberdeen connections in there with the likes of Finn Yates and Ethan Ross. Top goal scorer last campaign was Calvin Miller with 10 goals in the league from the left side of the 3 that nestles in behind the striker. He does like the 4-2-3-1, like a certain Jimmy Tilleen. He's been pretty consistent with that, has played that in all the games so far this season as well. It's been consistent so far in lineup. I expect it'll be Bain in goals. I think it'll be Henderson and Nielsen in the centre of the defence, unless Cole Donaldson, who's the captain, makes an unexpected return from injury. Likely will be Spencer and either Tate or Cartwright in the middle of the pitch. He went with Cartwright at Parkhead to give him a little bit more bite. Interested to see if they do that. It'll be Miller and Ross on the flanks. It'll either be Arfield or Nesbitt in the 10.
It's not going to be Ethan Ross.
No?
Out injured.
Is he out injured? Well,
Yep,
there we go.
Serious ankle injury in the last game, I think, was Celtic.
Oh, well, there we go. There. Thank you, Gav, for doing my research better than I did it.
Quite all right.
Positives for Falkirk, they've scored in all of their games so far this season, apart from the 0-0 draw against Cove in the League Cup. But since the start of the league campaign, they're shipping goals like nobody's business. Maybe like a vintage 2024, 2025, 2026 Aberdeen side. 9 goals conceded in 3 games. They will be open at the back. Many of the goals they've conceded so far have been from individual errors. We ever heard that before?
Hits just keep on rolling.
They do. So there we go. Is it outrageous to suggest that this is a must-win game for Aberdeen on Sunday?
Must win is perhaps extreme, but it is extremely desirable that we pick up 3 points, because we're already chasing some of our rival sides, and just for the sake of the season, we need to get up and running, because it's been pretty flashes of good things, but by and large, I'd say it's been pretty uninspiring opening 5 games to the 25-26 season.
Yeah, I don't think that's unfair. For you then, going in on Sunday, we don't have a game following the following weekend because we go into international break, so there should be no excuses here around, I know. We need to go at this one full tilt. We need to get off and running. We still got to score a goal in the league, for fuck's sake, this season so far. For you, set up, line up. I mean, the setup's 4-2-3-1. Don't know why I'm asking that question.
4-3-1, yeah.
Line up for you.
How do I go about covering up for Hilton and Nielsen? Yeah, I mean, at home against one of the newly promoted sides, a side who have got a number of players that were mainstays in League One, never mind the Championship. He's been very loyal to these players. John McGlynn's decision to bring Brian Graham to the Scottish Premiership in 2025 is extremely curious to me. A guy that never scored goals in the Premiership in his prime, never mind at this stage of his career. You have to be looking at 3 points as a necessity, a minimum. Return, as far as who I'd play in the game, obviously Mitov will be in goal. I wouldn't be adverse here to going with Jensen at... actually, I mean, I was going to say Devlin, but I think Devlin pulled up with a calf injury towards the end of that game, so maybe 2 games in the space of a few days would be too much. So Jensen, Dorrington and Canister, assuming they're available. I wouldn't be adverse to putting Gab Malloy back in at left back. I thought he looked decent when he's been called upon, apart from, the odd individual error here and there. And then in the midfield, you've got to be pressing home an advantage against a newly promoted side at home. So Clarkson, Palaversa, and then you're talking Milanovic. I'd get Ashish in the number 10. I'd give Blalovic a go. And then you're talking, I assume Lazic is not available, so probably Esther Sokler front, unless things happen to change the next couple of days.
Yeah, going to be interesting. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up with something very similar to the starting 11 that started in Bucharest, possibly. Maybe Milanovic in for Polvara, and we go with the kind of the same 3 tucked in behind Esther Sokler. I'd be tempted with Palaversa and Clarkson in the centre of the pitch. I think Falkirk will try to make it a little bit scrappy in there, but I'd be tempted with those 2, maybe Shinnie at left back, which I know has not worked particularly well in recent times, but I'd maybe be tempted with it here just in a way to try and get him, Palaversa and Clarkson all in the team together. But yeah, going to be interesting. I think I'm probably similar to you here in that I don't think this is necessarily a must win per se, but it's starting to creep that way. And we've seen before how difficult a campaign can be if you do not get that monkey off your back early doors. And this would have been penciled in, I think, early on as being okay. Hearts away, Celtic home are not the easiest first 2 league fixtures you can get. I'm sure this would have been penciled in early doors as being a 3 points kind of has to come here.
As we just said, we're going to have 6 very competitive, physically and mentally draining Europa Conference League games kicking off in October. So between now and then, to achieve something respectable, something that can be celebrated in the league, we need to take the time and the matches that are available to us to get as many points on the board, and have to start with a team who I think are going to struggle for the entirety of the season. 3 points. My apologies, 3 points is a must.
3 points and up
You know
the road.
the alarm bells are. I don't know if they're ringing, but they're echoing in the distance.
Yeah, they're starting to just tingle gently in the wind, possibly. Prediction for you then for Sunday?
We just said up the road, but it's up Pittodrie, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
3 points and up the road for me, back to Inverurie.
Okay. We're a defensive atrocity, so we're not going to keep a clean sheet. So I'll say 3-1 to Aberdeen.
There we go, 3-1. Any ventures on goal scorers, or just going to go with 3-1?
I think Ashish will get off the mark. Sokler will get 1, and maybe even perhaps Leighton Clarkson.
I'm going with the first 2 there. Ashish and Sokler. Milanovic also to get up and running is my prediction for Sunday. And I'm going to go you here. 3-1, I think, to Aberdeen is how
further prediction. I've never done this before, but I'll just say that Brian Graham will not score a goal for Falkirk.
Well, there we go. Get that one on your coupon. Brian Graham to net early doors for Falkirk.
Don't you get that on your coupon, Brian Graham? Get punished for that kind of thing in this day and age.
Right, will that do us?
Yeah. It's been a pleasure.
It's been a thing, that's for sure. Right, we've been the ABZ Football Podcast. You've been the Solar System. Thank you for joining us on whatever medium you've done it today. Hopefully, you've enjoyed us using the YouTube channel for once. It's been sitting there dormant for about 2 years, but there we go. Finally got off the horse and done that. Stop looking at the Boyan picture in the background, Gav. Let's pretend it doesn't exist.
Oh, it's nothing to do with that. I'm looking at the Duke picture.
Oh, lovely.
Always preferred him anyway.
Right, next time out, we will talk about the Falkirk game, and we will review, I guess, what has or hasn't happened in the closing stages of the transfer window. And then it's a week off for international games. So we'll consider, I guess, how we feel we look after the closing of that window.
Consider the international futures, the near international futures of our new signing, Lyndon Dykes.
Quite possibly. There we go. Thanks, Gav.
Thank you.
Catch you next time. Stand free.